This is AndyTube. In this video, I'm going to be refurbishing the bottom plate, the oil pan, the oil drip pan of a Singer Model 327K. And I've been doing a series on that machine. You may have seen some of the videos, and the last one I did was about oiling and greasing it. And of course I had to take this off to show you how to oil the mechanical parts on the bottom, and it reminded me that I had a lot of rust on this. I think you'll be able to see some here around the edges. Most of it was on the right side, but there's still plenty over here. It's not too bad, and some people wouldn't bother with it, I guess. But taking it off, I remembered how bad the inside was. Again, a little bit on the left, but most of it on the right. So this right side was exposed to some moisture source, I think, and when I opened it up, it had a lot of dirt on this side too. So I don't know what was going on there around the motor end, but I did clean this and degrease the whole thing. I spray it with the crud cutter and rinse it and spray it and rinse it, and the felt gets a little warped. Maybe I'll put a link at the end of the video to one of the videos where I show that how to do it. Then I set it flat to dry, and then usually that's all I have to do, but in this case I decided I want to get the rust off of there, and then I'll probably repaint it, although you can never really match this kind of silvery black paint that Singer used. But I'll use a I've done it with flat black, and I've done it with glossy black, and I still have glossy black left, spray paint, so that's what I'll probably use. To get the rust off, I use a product made by Rust-Oleum in the crud cutter line of products called V-Must for Rust, rust remover and inhibitor. So you put this on, and it dissolves the rust, and it's supposed to help protect it from coming back for up to 12 months if you don't paint the metal or seal the metal or whatever. And it's water-based, and it's earth-friendly, and it's the first rust remover I had tried after about, I don't know, 50 years ago. I used some navel jelly on an old bicycle, but I like it. Now, I know that a lot of people use a product called Evapo-Rust, and they seem to like it, so, whatever. This is what I use. I'll put a link to it below the video, and I'm going to use some fine steel wool also to scrub the rust and to lightly do the whole finish so that the paint will stay better, the new paint. So let's get started with this now. Remember, you have a chemical, so you need your safety goggles here. You never think anything's going to happen, but you don't want to be the person. You don't want to be the blind person who says, "Oh, I should have been more careful." So we'll put these on, and then the way I do this is I just pour a little bit of this. By the way, where I live, you can buy this at Walmart for $4. I happened to buy this one the first place I saw it, which was at the Home Depot, and I think it was maybe closer to $5. But I've seen it on Amazon and other hardware stores now, so it's definitely available. And this is a little ounce. This is 8 ounce. And you can buy much bigger quantities with that. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't have a spray now and a jelly and all kinds of stuff. But I found you don't need a lot of this. So I'm just going to take that, and I'm going to take a cheap artist brush, a soft one like for watercolor, and I'm going to just brush it on the areas that have the rust and let it work for a while. And while I'm doing this, you know, it's like watching paint dry, right? I also, in this video, am going to put on new bed cushions, more commonly known as the rubber feet on the bottom of the machine. On these vintage machines, if they're not all chewed up and broken, they are at the least rock hard. They're usually kind of a gray, vinyl-y, rubbery substance, I don't know what. But man, they get as hard as a rock. And a lot of times, the screws are a little bit rusty or very rusty. So I'm going to talk about that, like when I paint and when I'm waiting for one side to dry and stuff. I'm going to show you how I change those feet and where I get them and so forth. So I think this is about it. We'll see. Now, the worst rust I ever had to contend with, I had to soak some parts in this solution for about 15 minutes. Usually it doesn't take that long, but we'll just go across here. And now with this product, what I found is, with other stuff around the house, is you know, you get it on there, and then sometimes you don't even have to scrub it or anything, but irregardless, you can just wipe it off with a cloth, and then you can paint right over that. You don't need to, like, you want to remove your steel wool dust and so forth, but you don't need to wash the chemical off, has been my experience. Of course, you want to read the directions, and this does have kind of a funky smell. Not high chemical, but kind of a low, flat, a little bit. So I just have a fan blowing. Some people who are sensitive to the smell, maybe you want to use it outdoors. I just have a fan blowing like up over my head to just move it away. But you see, it's kind of taken off some of the paint here too, right? You can see that, right? So besides the rust, it's removing some of this old Singer paint here on the bottom. And it looks like it's kind of drying already. So I'm just going to take a little cotton rag and wipe off any paint particles, rust particles, and the dust from it. But you see how quickly it works, really. Now, if you're on bare metal, you know, it works very quick, and I've done that in some of my videos, the bare metal. So I have that experience. Let's go ahead now. This side is a lot worse. You can see the rust is worse. It's the metal is kind of sticking up in the rusty spots, you know, where it really got through the paint pretty well. And so we may have to apply this twice or leave it on here longer. I don't know. For the critics of my videos who write to me and tell me that my videos are too long, they go too slow, there's boring parts. You know, when you look at the YouTube screen, down in the bottom right hand corner is the gear for the settings. If you click on that, one of the settings is the video speed. And you can slow the video down, or you can speed it up to, you know, like 1 1/4 times normal, 1 1/2, up to 2 times normal. So if you think I'm going too slow or this part's too boring, you can fast forward or you can speed up the video and hear me. I don't think you hear too much volume. I played around with it once just to see if it worked, because somebody wrote to me about that and said, tell you, well, I won't say what they told me to tell my critics, but she's the one that explained about that button. So I never used it. I didn't know what it was. But I have to say, I make a lot more videos on YouTube than I watch. I was just looking at the analytics page of my channel, which I'm slowly learning a little bit about, but I saw that I have now had over 1 million views, and it was shocking and surprising to me, because I never expected that when I just started this little channel to try and help people with their vintage Singer machines. You know, people that wanted to fix their problem themselves, or replace a part, or set their timing, or they just needed to change a motor belt or a timing belt and stuff. And when I started doing this, there wasn't much stuff like that available, really. And so when I would figure stuff out, sometimes I would make a video. Then I decided to do that big, long, 50+ video series of the Singer 404, my favorite, what I consider a cabinet mounted or work table mounted straight stitch sewing machine, because I'd actually had some requests. So that was a lot of fun, just taking it kind of a step by step, and I've learned a little bit as I went about videos. I don't got an expensive setup here, as you can see. I got a $200 camera and a couple of desk lights, and I been getting some donations lately, so I bought a nice LED light. Now see how this is kind of whited up here? That's from the paint here. Now if you wanted to, you could put this on a little bit more and leave it on a little bit longer, and you could probably take this down to the bare metal with using a little heavier steel wool or some sandpaper first. But for in my experience, for the bottom plate here, that's not really necessary. But you can work on the rest as much as you want. Okay, I guess, well, wait a minute, I see a couple little, maybe a little couple things on the edge here. These are hard to paint. Now, it's very common online, like eBay and Sew Classic, Central Michigan Sewing. I don't know, you know, I don't shop much at Amazon, so I'm not sure, but I'm sure that you could probably find it too, that they make these felt replacements, and they're pre-cut, and they're like peel and stick. Now they're not anywhere near as thick or dense as this old, what Singer called a felt. But if yours is all rotten and broken up, it's a good way to do it. You peel it off, and you use something like Goo Gone to get the old glue off, and you just peel and stick one of these on. And they're not expensive. They're like under $10. But I checked again this morning to see if I could find one for this 327. And really the only thing that seems readily available is for the Model 221 featherweights and the Model 301 slant needle, which are very, very popular machines. So I guess whoever make those doesn't think it's these type of machines and the Fashion Mate and Stylist, they don't think it's worth it, I guess. So when I have one that's just really bad, my wife took me to kind of like a fabric outlet store in Tempe, Arizona, where I live, and we bought some thicker black felt, and she just bought like a yard of it, and she'll just make a pattern and she'll cut it out for me, and then I use some craft glue to glue it down, and it's good, or it's as good or better than anything I bought online. And I think she bought a 30-some inch wide by a yard long thing of this felt for like $3 or something. So and it was pretty thick, dense felt. I was impressed. Okay, I think I got this to where I want to be painting. So you can see I didn't have to use much of this rust remover, so I'm going to put the rest back into the bottle for next time. And then I got to set up on my patio and find some kind of a drop cloth and so forth to set up, and I'll have to see if I'm going to paint this side first, because I'll have to kind of tape off the felt. I don't want to get paint all over the felt. And then when that's all done, then I could flip it over and paint the back. But we'll see. So I'll go ahead and set up and figure out how I'm going to paint it, and then we'll do that. Okay, so I have a little change of plans here with my painting. I went outside on the patio, a condo I live in, and got a drop cloth, and I dug around in my storeroom to find that gloss black paint, and I couldn't find it, but I found some paint I used last year to paint the barbecue, and it's made by Rust-Oleum, a product that I like, and it's called High Heat, and it's an enamel type paint, and it can take, I forget at the time that I bought it how many hundreds of degrees it can take, the paint and so forth. So I thought, hey, that'll be great, I'll just use that. It's kind of a matte finish instead of shiny, but I don't mind that at all. The gloss I used before was kind of too shiny in my opinion. So I thought, great, I'll use the High Heat. And like I live in the Sonoran Desert anyway, and it's hot here. I live in Arizona, in the Phoenix metro area, a couple of miles from Arizona State University. So okay, and then I started thinking about that, so I was reading the directions, and it says to use this product when the temperature is between 50 degrees and 90 degrees Fahrenheit, or 10 to 32 degrees centigrade. I said, uh-oh, that's maybe going to be a problem. It's summertime here, so I got my phone and I said, Tempe weather. Let's see what.
Currently in Tempe it's 114 and partly cloudy. Today, it'll be mostly cloudy, with a forecasted high of 115 and a low of 88. There is currently an excessive heat warning in effect.
I bet. Yay, summer in Arizona. Especially the Phoenix, down here in the valley of the Sonoran Desert. So, if you heard him say the low tomorrow morning is going to be 88, so I'll have to get up early and spray paint the back side of this, you know, the outside part here, tomorrow when it's only 88 degrees. So I do have some flat black painters, Rust-Oleum paint, so I decided that's what I'm going to use here. I was fooling around and trying to cover up the felt and tape it off and stuff, and it was really kind of a pain. So I decided I'm going to use a brush with this flat black paint on the inside, and then tomorrow morning, right, I'll go out when it's only 88 and I will paint the outside with that high heat paint. I'm looking forward to doing that, to see how it turns out compared to that high gloss paint I used before. So I'm just going to do this. You know, you don't really need to watch if you don't care to. It's Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch, indoor outdoor. It's just a latex paint. It's good for wood, metal, and crafts. And I'm not going to prime the metal or anything. I think treating it with the rust remover and the steel wool is going to be fine. The paint will adhere. I've had good luck with Rust-Oleum paints. And I do want a disclaimer, you know, that think of me more as an electromechanical guy, not a painter. My daughter's the one with a fine arts degree in painting. But she lives in another state, so I'm on my own here. But this will just kind of give you an idea, maybe, of what you can do if you have messed up oil pan or bottom plate or bottom cover on your machine, and some of the paint is gone, or you're doing a rust removal like I had to do, and you want to make it look a little bit better. I'm hoping it's going to look a little bit better when I'm done. They always say paint into a wet edge, but I think that's when I paint the house. So I added about a 1/4 teaspoon of water to this paint because it's pretty old. So I'm hoping that my brush marks will settle down, but I'm going to put this flat so the paint doesn't kind of run towards the bottom here. So like I said, if you are not interested in this, I don't blame you. If you wanna laugh, you know, and you didn't realize that Andy Tube is a comedy show, well, here's your chance, you know. And feel free to laugh at my expense, because like I said, I am not a painter. My daughter didn't get those painting skills from me. Now my mom, that's a different story. She was one of the most creative people I knew. All kinds of arts and crafts and design and so forth, and had her own catering business for a number of years after the kids, we were all grown up and stuff. And so I told my daughter that the genes for that creative stuff must only be for the females in the family. My dad was an engineer, and I don't remember him being particularly arty, but I did have to help him paint the house many times when I was growing up, and fences and walls and stuff like that. So I was almost tempted to go ahead and set up and spray paint at 114 degrees, because I thought, well, you know, it says 90, so 114, that's only like 24 degrees over what they recommend. Maybe I should have done it and it would have been okay, and I could have sent them a little video to say, hey, your paint can handle more than 90. The other problem is it's pretty dry out there too, you know. So, I mean, I was outside about a minute digging around looking for a drop cloth and stuff when I'd already broken into a nice sweat. And this is one of our more humid times of the year because our monsoon season has started. It usually starts in late July. And we can get some horrific wind and rain and lightning storms here. And but it felt pretty dry out today. Usually the morning and evening it's more humid, and late evening and stuff is where we tend to get more of our monsoon rain. So anyway, I thought, well, maybe the paint would dry before it even hit the metal. Right? 114. So I'm just going to put a coat on here and go have an iced tea. And while this is drying, I think what I'll do is show you the video about putting these feet on, new feet. Taking the old crummy feet off and putting these new ones on. And then tomorrow morning, like I said, I will, yeah, I sure see a lot of brush strokes here. So it's a good thing I'm not painting the machine itself, right? Oh boy. Okay, I'm gonna, I got the coverage here, so I better quit while I'm a little tiny bit ahead. I haven't dumped the paint on the desk or anything. Right? So that was a good laugh. So, let me wash the paintbrush here, and then I'll run the video of changing out these bed cushion / rubber feet on a vintage machine. Okay, while we're waiting for the paint to dry, I'm going to go ahead and put these new bed cushion rubber feet on. And let me show you. I'll show them to you here. It's a little... there they go, and they're made with a recessed hole, and the diameter fits. Whoop! I guess I should show you in the one I have in view here. They just fit right in there, and then when you tighten up the mounting screw, you can see like they're like a little loose in there. But when you tighten up the mounting screw and deadhead it in, it kind of compresses that center part, so the edge fits very nice, and the screw is still recessed in there, you know. And speaking of the screws, here's one that's a very common size, and you can see it's got a little space on it that does not have any tread, and it just goes right in there like that, and then you see the head is recessed inside, and when I tighten it up it'll be recessed even a little bit more. So these, when I took out the old ones, I had one that was very stubborn to come out over on the bottom right corner, and I did use my if you remember my little Chapman 9600 screwdriver kit, came with this little mini ratchet, and I used that extension arm that you usually put on the handle, and I can't remember exactly which one of these tips I used. Can I read the number on that? 26. And I used that ratchet to get it out, and then it finally came out. And I had put WD-40 on it and stuff, and I tried it just with the regular handle, and it was just, man, it was just really stuck in there. So then I remembered the little mini ratchet, and boom, it came right out. So I want to show you a picture of what the old one looked like. And it's not from this. I didn't take pictures of this one, but I have several pictures of the old ones in place on different machines, and this one was about average condition. Like I said, some are still full size like this and hard as a rock. Some are gone, some are broken in half. Usually what happens is they wear down and start chipping off, and then the screw gets exposed. And you buy a used machine, at a garage sale or Goodwill or something, and you bring it home, and if it's in a case, you take it out of the case and you set it on your table and say, wow, look at this, and you move it around and it scratches scratches everything up. So let me show you a picture of how they can look. Pretty common. Okay, so especially the one down in the right corner looked real rusty and stuff like that. So I just did the same thing. I took a little cup like that, and I threw them in the cup, and I just poured in enough must for rust to cover them, and I just let them sit in there like, I don't know, 15 minutes or something, and it came out. They're all de-rusted and ready to go. I used to clean them with my Dremel and a wire brush, and man, it was painstaking, and you could never really get the rust out of the slot very well. So using this chemical, boy, it just really does nice. So what I do to put these on is I first put a little drop of oil in each screw hole, which just helps the screws go in, and then 30 years from now when I go to replace these I'll be able to get the screw out maybe easier. Okay, and then it's very easy. Sometimes when you put this, let me come back over here to this closer one here. When you put the screw in there like that, sometimes the screw is snug enough that you can actually use the little rubber foot to get it started in there. And then we'll use our screwdriver. That one didn't start for me. There we go. Don't force it. These steels are, these screws are steel, but remember the cast body is aluminum. So you have a steel screw going into an aluminum body, so you don't want to, you don't want to get it in there crooked and strip it. And then you screw this foot in until it won't turn in anymore. You just deadhead it down, and looks like it can go in a little bit more here. There we go. And then it is still recessed. The screw is still recessed in here, So there's no worry that it's going to scratch any surface that you put it on. So that's now I buy these at So Classic, and you can buy them at other places, and I think if you buy, they're individually priced, and I think they're like 79 cents for one. And then if you buy maybe 4 or 6 of them. They're 69 cents each, and if you buy 12, they're 59 cents each. So I always buy at least 12. That's 3 machines, which, you know, I'll figure I'd live long enough to do at least 3 more machines, right? But I've seen them online for as much as $3 each, so don't be silly, you know. And that's it. That's what I'm going to do with the rest of them. But I wanted to show you that and talk about that while the paint's dry. So I'll finish putting these in, and then we'll go check the paint. Well, we can say that's one good thing about the warm, dry weather. My paint's already very dry, no problem. And I see brush marks and wave lines, but really it came out better than I thought it would for me. So I'm satisfied with that. And then tomorrow, when it's not 114, I'm going to spray this side outside on my patio. I'll use the spray paint, and I'm hoping for a lot smoother, prettier finish on the outside here. But we'll see how it goes. It's still, you know, 88 is still pretty warm, so we'll see if it doesn't dry too quick and spot up. So we'll catch it tomorrow after I paint this. Well, I'll show painting it, I guess. So we'll see you tomorrow for the painting. Stay tuned. Okay, it's 5:30 the next morning. Let's check Tempe weather.
Currently in Tempe it's 89 and mostly cloudy. Today, it'll be partly cloudy, with a forecasted high of 103 and a low of 85.
Ooh, only 103 because of the cloud cover. Nice. So I'm barely under the temperature limit of 90. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a try here. This is my Rust-Oleum high heat paint. Looks like it's going on pretty evenly. Definitely a matte finish. I'm going to call it good. Now the paint can instructions say that it'll set up to the touch in 30 minutes. So after a half hour, I'm going to move it to under the cover, since it's cloudy and a slight chance for rain, and I'll let it dry the rest of the way, and then we'll get it back on the machine and finish it up. It's all dry now, and it came out nice. I like how it looks. The flat look or matte finish is okay with me. And speaking of dry, I just show you one of the challenges of spray painting outdoors in the Arizona desert in the summertime. When I feel it, it has a little bit of a gritty finish. And I'm going to show you here. I don't know if you remember, I mentioned something about if it would paint would dry before it could get to the metal. But I'll just use an old lint brush here to brush this down. But you can see maybe already the dried paint coming off. So I'm going to brush this off some more, and then we'll put it on. Okay, got that all brushed off now, and you can see a nice amount of the paint that literally dried while I was trying to paint that. When I painted the barbecue, it was last January, a mild sunny day, about 65, and I didn't have that I remember when I painted the barbecue. So a little bit of a difference there, but I'm happy with how it came out. So let's get this pretty thing over here a little bit closer. Get it back onto the machine here. Just put a drop of oil on the thumb screw attachment screw. Get our plate up in here. And these came from the factory with what was called a washer, a felt washer. And I always replace it if it's missing. I don't know why. I guess just to avoid the metal on metal and any rattling sound or anything like that. Ta-da! All right, that's a refurbishing, and my replacement bed cushions or rubber feet look real good. They've expanded now. Oops, maybe that's a little too close. And they're nice and firm there. So that part is done. Let's turn her up now. Now, if you stayed with me this far into the video, I want to thank you for that. What a loyal viewer you are, or else there's nothing else on TV tonight, maybe. But as a bonus, I'm going to do a couple other things here that are kind of cosmetic. One's fairly functional, but they weren't mentioned in the title of the video or anything. So it's just a little bonus. So let me set up for that. Okay, one of the things I like to do is check the spool pins, and especially these plastic ones can get bent. Can you see that's bent? It's, I don't know, it looks like a bent periscope or something there, but I see this bent back plastic pin on a lot of models that I buy used, and I just assumed that it was in a case that wasn't tall enough or something, but most of them I can twist out. Sometimes I gotta have a pair of pliers. Now I buy my replacement pins at SEW Classic, S-E-W Classic, and they got a couple of different sizes. This is a vintage pin like the one I just took out, but it's straight. It was on a machine I restored, and the lady wanted new shiny white pins, not this ivory looking one. So it's actually the same size as the bent one that I took out as far as diameter. But you see, it's more opaque than the other. But the new pins, they have a couple different sizes. This is the closest that I can get to the original pin. It's just a little bit bigger diameter. It's pretty close though. Then they have another one that's got a kind of a tapered end like this, and a, I don't know, crinkled end, and it's supposed to be reversible, and it's a little thinner, and it does go in easier, but then it's got this little crinkle pointy top on it that I don't like. So sometimes you can straighten these. Now if I had a bench vise, I think you could just put it in there and do it. Sometimes I have a flat spot on these old telephone pliers here, and I can get on there so I don't damage the plastic, you know, with teeth marks, and bend it back the other way, like too far. And I've tried heating them with soaking them in hot water and putting them in a warm oven, and because I was always told plastic had a memory, you know, it would go back to the original shape. But that looks a little bit better. So I think I'll keep my two vintage ones, but I am going to keep that bent one because it's looking pretty good now. And I'm going to use one of the pins that I bought on So Classic to replace on the top arm cover here. And like I said, I have forced these in before, and I'll just take like a rubber mallet and tap them in, and they go in. But I'm always worried that I'm going to split this cover. This one doesn't go through. Some, they're open at the bottom, kind of, and you can push them out. But I guess I'm just, you know, this machine's like, what, from the 60s, I think? So it's 50 some years old. I'm just worried to crack it. So I just take some 400 grit sandpaper. I think this was 400. Yeah, the pink was 400. And you can see where I've done it before here. And I'll just stick that tapered end in there. And, you know, twist it back and forth, I don't know, many times, you know. And till I get a little bit smaller diameter on it. Because a lot of times when I've tapped them in and then pulled them out later, I've seen where it's really just like curled up the plastic edge, pushed up the plastic. And I've done this a few times, I don't know, maybe a dozen times now, and it seems to work real well. So check it. I mean, you don't want to get it so small that it won't stay in there. That's actually doing pretty close. Let me do a little bit more. And so these are just some cosmetic things to do when I restore a machine. But if you ever get one with a broken one or bent like that, or you want to replace it, and they aren't very expensive. You know, the shipping is more than the pins, so I usually wait until I'm going to buy a few things from So Classic, like maybe some belts and bobbins and some things like that, and then I'll buy a little pack of 5 or 10 of these, because they fit quite a few machines, the Slant-O-Matics and everything. Okay, so when I feel I've got it in the right spot, I'm just going to set it up there and get it started, hold it as straight as I can, and I'm going to tap it in there. And the ones with the little hole in the bottom, you can see how far you went in and so forth. The other thing is to get it straight. See, now I'm leaning like, I don't know, I guess it doesn't look too bad. I was going to say I'm leaning a little towards the front. Then I buy these felts from Central Michigan Sewing, like in a 100-pack. I wish I could get a lot of different colors. I've seen black, and I've seen a few white, but I wish I could get the dark brown color for the slants, and this would even look good in white or green. But anyway, put myself a new felt on there, and so that's pretty. Okay, so the other part of this bonus, this is going to be an upgrade for this machine, because I don't know if you remember back in my intro video, this is the 327, so it's a zigzag. 328 was the zigzag machine, and it's got the flip up door in the arm cover, and you can put in little different pattern cams, and that's the more expensive model, of course. And then the 329 was a straight stitch only. It doesn't have any zigzag stack or this control or anything. It's just a very nice straight stitch machine. So on the Spartan model, it has this number 2 bobbin winder thread tension, and I call it a number 2 because this little piece of metal, let me see if I can get down here a little bit. It looks, it looks like the number 2, right? And the idea with this is when you're going to wind a bobbin, you come from your spool pin to the arm cover thread guide, and then you go from there all the way down across the machine, and you wrap it around this number 2, and right, you bring the thread down, you wrap it around that number 2 to get some tension on it, and then you go up to your bobbin. And I noticed when I took this off, when I was degreasing and cleaning the machine, that there's an adjustment slot. Let's see if I can get this over here. Can you see that little slot right there next to the hole for the mounting screw? And I've seen this setup on other singers when there's a tension disc, a spring-loaded tension disc here, and on the bottom of that bracket there'll be a pin that sticks out that goes in this slot, and it helps keep the bracket from twisting, but also you use it to adjust the screw hole slotted, so you can adjust the bracket left or right to get an even wind on your bobbin. So if your bobbin is winding heavily on the left, you loosen the screw here and you move this, a tiny bit to the right, and vice versa. If your bobbin is loading up too heavy on the right side when you're winding the bobbin, you adjust this bracket a little to the left. So looking at that, then I realized, this is a hole for a spool pin. This is an oil port, and there's no other attachment. So they're using this same body. They're using this same body for the 327, 328, and 329. And on the Singer branded, or Singer badge, not Spartan. This is made by Singer, but it's the Spartan badge. We've talked about that with more black parts than chrome and so forth. But this was another way, I guess, for them to save a little bit of money was to did I already lose the screw on this? Here it is. Was to use just a plain black screw, and I was a little surprised this was chrome, but I've seen this on other models, so it must have been something they had in stock. So anyway, my upgrade is going to be, I'm going to put one of the tension discs here, and I'm going to add another spool pin. Okay, and I'm using a tension disc. I couldn't find one from the 328 or a 329, and they're a little bit different looking than the one that I'm going to use here. But this is from a 401, and that's how common this type of tension disc is. Now I've got it all disassembled to clean it, so I'm going to put it back together. But you see the little adjusting pin there? Yeah, that fits right in that slot up here, just like that. And then the screw hole is slotted so that you can adjust it back or forth to get this to center on the bobbin up here, and make a even wind back and forth, not all bunched up on one side. So, and it's chrome. Woohoo! So I'm adding some bling to the machine, you know. And it's got a chrome mounting screw and little chrome parts here and everything. So, and let's see, how does this go back together now? So the disc, there's a cup for it that has this little tension spring. Just enough, and it's not adjustable tension like your thread tension unit. It's just to put a little bit of tension to wind the bobbin evenly. So that spring goes in the cup, and then there's a little dished chrome spring cover. So we'll make a little sandwich out of that. And then there's the disc mounting screw that's chrome that goes right in the center there. Right? See how easy that is? And then that assembly mounts to the bracket. Now you don't want the bracket like this. You know, the screw and the pin, you can see where the depression is for the pin. You want that in the back. So this smooth, flat part is right up in the front. And your little tension disc assembly, whoop, that I just dropped, and it all came apart. Good thing I know how to put it back together, huh? And by the way, when I do a machine, if it has one of these, I usually take it apart and clean it, because it's always full of dust and lint. And if you lose your, see that little springy tension? You lose that tension, and then you don't get as good of a wind, a smooth wind on the bobbin thread. And people don't think that much about winding bobbins, and I guess nowadays people buy these pre-wound bobbins out of China or whatever. But let's see if I get in that. There we go. Had to back it up a little bit and then start to get the thread in there. And you just tighten that righty-tighty all the way. Then you'll see the very tip of the screw will kind of poke out the back there a little bit. Okay, so you're getting this, right? I don't know what made me think of that. I think just because I saw the adjustment slot, and then I figured out this was a hole for a spool pin, and I said, hey, for $4, I'm gonna buy one of these bobbin winder tension discs and bracket, and it's like I'm upgrading the machine, right? And I also wondered if the Singer one is a different shade of green, I think, but I'm not sure. I think they mixed it up pretty good. But I'm wondering if this cover plate that said Singer on it instead of Spartan, I wonder if it would fit on here. I don't know. But there's nothing wrong with it saying Spartan, you know. I've tried to express that. The motor is the same. The size of the shafts and all that stuff, it's all the same, you know. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with the machine being a Spartan. I don't think, you know. Mostly it's this blackened parts that were cheaper to make than chrome. They didn't put a light switch, you know, a few things like that. But the needle bar part number, presser bar part number, the arm shaft, the gears, the little cam in there, the feed regulator, the motor, you know, it's all the same part. So okay, I'm going to take another new pin then, and I'm going to put it right in, and I'm going to add. Now the reason that I like this is after I saw a woman one time had her bobbin thread color. She was using a white bobbin thread and kind of a, I don't know, pinkish beige needle thread, but she had the white thread on here on a spool going through here, because her machine was set up that way, up to the bobbin winder, but she had a spool and this was down, and while she was sewing she was winding a bobbin. And I said, wow, I didn't know you could do that. And she goes, yeah, when I check and see that my bobbin's getting low, I just start winding another one as I sew. Or if I know that, you know, this project I'm doing, I'm going to need 2 or 3 bobbins, I'll wind one and start sewing, and while I'm sewing, wind the others. I thought, wow, that's great. So I'm just going to get this down a little bit, and then we're going to tap it in the same way. Before I got that rubber mallet, I did use a metal hammer before, you know, so I wouldn't worry about that. I just am always worried about damaging the finish or something, so I figure a rubber or plastic. If you've watched any of my videos, you know I can be fumbled fingered. Let's see. I want to turn this because from my angle I'm having a hard time getting by the feed, so I'm just going to turn it so I got a little better angle on it here. Okay, that's good to go. And then I'll get another one of my spool pin felts. This Singer actually called a felt washer. A felt washer. So, what do you think? Whoops, I can see that's adjusted too far to the right. I'm going to try and put the screw about in the middle of that slot. And then I'll start winding a bobbin. You know, when I do my sewing tests and stuff, I'll put a bobbin on there. You just put your spool here and you go behind that little spring-loaded disc and in front of the mounting plate, and then you just, you know, take it up to your bobbin, and it should wind on the bobbin like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And if you see it kind of going left, left, center, left, right, left, 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 then you know to adjust it. But I like it. I don't know if somebody sees this, they may be confused. How come my Spartan doesn't have this? Well, now you know. So there's your bonus for hanging around my long, boring videos. And I'm so glad you did, and thanks for tuning into my channel, and for the subscribers, and I guess what I think of as loyal return viewers. I really appreciate it, and I know a lot of you have told your friends and sewing groups, and I guess Facebook and groups. I don't do the other social media, so I really appreciate that. And I hope you do come back and see me again. In the meantime, take care of yourself, okay?